Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a special episode of Talking Sports with host Alec Pecano and our special guest tonight, Notre Dame wide receiver, former Notre Dame wide receiver Chris Fink.
Hey, what's up, Alec?
Okay, what's up?
Thanks for having
Okay,
me on, dude.
you're welcome. Why don't you tell everybody your backstory of how you know me, and then we'll get into the the interview.
Sure. Well, I've known you for a long time since we were both little kids. Our dads are old friends, and so when we were growing up in Ohio, we would frequently end up at each other's houses, just full family hanging out and spend time together playing. We had to be what, toddlers probably. So
Yeah.
um, that was a big part of our childhood, and known you since then, and now here we are.
Okay, let's start the interview. So, my first question for you is how did you come to choose Notre Dame for football and academics?
Yeah, I got really lucky being able to go to Notre Dame. I had a teammate in high school named Nick Coleman, who was a stud high school player, was offered by Notre Dame, committed to Notre Dame. And I wasn't getting a ton of recruiting attention, but Brian Kelly came to see Nick at my high school. Um, and my high school coach introduced me to Coach Kelly. And at the time, I wasn't sure if I was going to play college football. I was getting looks for some D3 schools that I didn't really want to go to. And I would like to play football in college, but I wanted to go somewhere that was a good fit for me, first and foremost. And if football was a part of that, perfect. So when I got introduced to Coach Kelly, I thought I was just having a candid conversation with him. I didn't think it was anything about recruiting. So I met him and he said, "Do you want to play football at the next level?" And I answered honestly what I was thinking at the time. I said, "I think so." And he said, "Let me rephrase. Do you want to walk on at Notre Dame?" And like my head started spinning. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that's what we're talking about. I can't believe I didn't answer confidently the first time. I'm so lucky this guy didn't walk away right after I said I think so. Kind of a ho hum answer there." So he told me to apply to school over the weekend and get in touch with Dave Poloquin, their director of player personnel at the time, and I got lucky on the football front with the connection from Nick, and Coach Kelly extended me a walk on offer, and I got lucky on the academic front as well because uh, by the time I applied, the deadline had passed, and I probably wouldn't have made it into school anyways. And I called Poloquin and I said, "Hey, I've got my application filled out, but I can't submit it because the deadline's over." And he said, "Oh, just send it to me." And he called me the next day. He said, "You're into school." So somehow I got on the football team. I didn't really deserve it. I got on academically. I didn't really deserve it. And I mean, it's just a pinch yourself moment. I mean, Notre Dame football is a top tier program, and the University of Notre Dame is an unbelievable school. It was close to home, like 4 hour drive from Ohio, and my sister was going there at the time. So it was really just like the perfect storm of everything I was looking for. Just kind of fell in my lap, and I'm really grateful for that.
Our next question is what were there times where you're a walk on the football team that you felt like you wanted to just quit and give up?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I would not say there's ever a time where I wanted to quit, but there were really, really hard times where it got frustrating and I got angry. Coming in as a walk on, you hold yourself in a high regard, just from the nature of being confident and knowing what you can do on the football field. But that's juxtaposed with how the coaches look at you and how the other players look at you when you get there. You didn't get a scholarship, so you're second tier player. They have about $250,000 tuition investment in all the scholarship players, so they're a priority from that standpoint. And you really have to prove yourself a few times over before they really believe that you have the right stuff. So, like for example, I might make a play against one of the starters when I was a freshman, And instead of anyone thinking that I made a good play, they think that the starter just messed up. There's no way that the walk-on could have done that well. It was just a mistake from the starter. So there were frustrating times for sure. I got angry and probably a little more angry than I should have. I was an angry guy, pissed off a little bit, being a walk-on, chip on my shoulder, and I think that helped me. But I'll also say that Notre Dame treats their walk-ons really, really well. I've heard some stories from other big-time programs about how they treat their walk-ons, and compared to my experience at Notre Dame and how I know that it still is, it's a really good place to be a walk-on.
My next question is, what was the feeling like when Brian Kelly brought you up in front of everybody and told you that you were on scholarship?
Oh man, it was a really good feeling. I was pretty surprised. I had been playing really well, so I wasn't surprised that I was being recognized, but I didn't think it would be in the form of a scholarship. Um, the way he actually framed it when he first started talking, he said that we were losing a guy, and he meant losing him as a walk-on or losing me as a walk-on. But the way he was saying it sounded like a guy was getting kicked off the team or a guy was quitting. So I was really kind of worried while he was talking. And then he flipped it all on its head and said, "We're losing a walk-on and we're gaining a scholarship player like Chris Finke. You're on scholarship." And the team, the whole team, all the guys, they mobbed me and everyone was congratulating me. And I got to call my parents afterwards and let them know that school was free. So that was a fun phone call. It was just a culmination of a lot of hard work, and I was really happy to be recognized and surprised that it happened as soon as it did, right before my sophomore season. But that was a really, really fun day.
Who were the teammates that were the first ones to congratulate you when you got put on scholarship?
So it was the teammates that were right near me. So I was kneeling towards the back of the huddle. So I can't say everyone who it was, but I know for a fact the first guy was Keenan Sentlever, who was a walk-on receiver a year older than me, who was one of the guys who was immediately a good friend to me and invited me to his mom's lake house. And he just gave me a big hug and was smiling and was happy for me. So I do remember that Keenan was the first guy.
What's one quote you remember Brian Kelly saying before a game?
Oh, well, put me on the spot a little bit. If I had time to think about it, I might be able to come up with something that's not coming to mind right now. But the thing he would say before every game was just press play was the thing he liked to say. So what that meant was we viewed our practice and all our offseason training as programming, putting it in our system so we're used to it, and any adversity we're going to come across is something we've seen before. So basically, he said game day was just going out there and letting that program run that we've built. So pressing play, like just rely on your training, be who we've worked to be. So that was always kind of the message going into game day. And then we'd pray the Our Father before we went out. So that was always special too.
Okay. This is a two-parter.
Okay.
What was the best atmosphere you played in at Notre Dame, home or road? And what was the worst atmosphere you played in on the road?
Okay. I would say probably the boring answer would be Notre Dame. I love playing at Notre Dame. So I'll give you a road game that was a lot of fun too. So I love to play at the Coliseum against USC. That's probably not the best though. Their fans aren't always that engaged. LA sports fans aren't the best. I would say going to Virginia Tech and
And
playing.
enter Sandman.
Yes, enter Sandman. You know it. We played all week in practice. During the whole practice, we had the speakers on full blast playing Enter Sandman over and over and over, just getting ready for it. And then when we finally got to run out there and they're playing it and the stadium's shaking and all their fans are jumping up and down, and their fans were mean too. Like their fans right behind our bench were yelling at us the whole game and flipping us off and really trying to get in our heads. And we whooped them pretty good. So I would say that was one of the best road games. And then the worst, I would say 2019 when we played at Stanford. Again, Stanford fans they don't really care that much, or don't anymore. Maybe they did when they were a little better, with the Andrew Luck days. But it was a rainy day. It was the last game of the season. Their team wasn't very good. There were probably like 6,000 people there, and most of them were our fans. And I played in some high school games in front of more exciting crowds than that. And yeah, it was just a rainy day. The stadium was mostly empty. They nicknamed the stadium the library because it's so quiet. So that was probably the worst one, I would say.
I've never heard that used for a stadium before.
That might not be a public nickname, but I know that we called it that.
The library.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question is worst weather game you ever played in at Notre Dame and best.
Worst weather game is easy. That is 2016 against NC State at NC State. There were hurricane warnings for that weekend. You can look up the highlights for the game. It's really an insane thing to watch. Like, there's standing water all over the field. People are fumbling all the time. I went out there for warm-ups and immediately was just soaked through all my clothes. They had some gloves that were supposed to be better in the rain, and I went out there with dry gloves that were supposed to be good in the rain, and the first ball just slipped right through my hands. I went in for a punt return that game, and it was coming towards me, and everything's so sopping wet. And instead of catching it, I just let it bounce in front of my feet, and the turf was so wet it basically just plugged. And I remember I got to the sideline, and Coach Kelly was mad at me that I didn't try to catch it, because to save a couple yards, maybe get a couple yards on the return. He goes, "Why didn't you catch that?" I go, "Coach, if we're being honest, I didn't think I was gonna catch it. It's slippery out there." He goes, "Oh, okay." And we ended up losing that game. It was a terrible game, but really, I urge you to go watch the highlights, or I don't know how the technology on the podcast works, you can plug some of them in here, but that one was horrible. And then the best weather game, it'd be a tie between a lot of them because we played on a lot of perfect days, like a couple 70 and sunny, 80 and sunny. But I'll say one game where it played to our advantage, and it's not necessarily because the weather was good, but we played my senior night in 2018 against Florida State at home. It was like 6 degrees outside. So the weather wasn't good, but because they were coming from Florida where they can't prepare for weather that cold, they were just shocked by it. So they got out there, and you could kind of tell they weren't ready for it. And we had been practicing outside all week. So the weather wasn't that good, but it helped us the most. But yeah, we had plenty of games towards the beginning of the season where it was 85 and sunny and no complaints. So
where was your preferred spot to hang out when you were at Notre Dame, when you weren't playing football and you weren't in class?
I like to hang out at my house off campus that I had with a few of my roommates. We would have some guys over, hang in our garage. We had a pretty sweet TV setup with multiple TVs on like an NFL Sunday. We'd get 2 TVs and a computer going and stream all the games we could and just hang out. That was a good spot. We would go out on the campus and play some spike ball, which was fun. And then there are a lot of places I didn't like hang out for very long at these places, but a lot of places around campus that are great to be. There's the Grotto, which is a place to light a candle, say a prayer, reflective place right by the lakes. The Basilica at Notre Dame is beautiful. Some of the most beautiful masses I've ever been at were in there. My dorm, Keo, was great. We had a chapel in there as well, and I had a lot of friends in there. So Notre Dame campus is so beautiful. There's a lot of places you could find to just sit and hang and have a good time with friends or be reflective by yourself. So there are a lot of good places.
What were your favorite memories at Notre Dame?
Yeah, my favorite memories in general were just time spent in the locker room, goofing off with friends, after a workout or after practice, just having laughs. It was such a good locker room. Everyone got along, and we had a lot of different guys in there who brought different things to the locker room that everyone appreciated. So in general, those are my favorite times. But I'll say my favorite football memory was against USC in 2018. We were 11-0 heading into the game. It's our last game of the season. If we win, we're going to the playoffs. and we had to come from behind and beat them. And we had one play towards the end of the game where we dumped a pass to Tony Jones, our running back, and he took it about maybe 35, 40 yards for a touchdown to seal the game. Got a huge block from Miles Boykin towards the end of it, and I was on the field for it. But one of my favorite things to do is to go back on the film and rewind that play and just watch our whole sideline jumping up and down for joy, and everybody knowing like, oh, we're doing it, we're going to the playoff, and that was like the one that put it over the top. So that was my favorite football play from when I was at school.
Did you ever play in a snow game when you were at Notre Dame?
Not really. I played in one or two that there were some flurries, but none that you would like look at it on TV and say, "Oh, it's snowing," and there's no snow on the field, which I found disappointing. I kind of wanted to play in a snow game. I think it looks kind of fun, and it looks really cool with the field being all white. And I know they played in one last year against Boston College, and it looked so fun. I was jealous of them, but no, I didn't ever get to really play in one.
Out of all your roommates, who was your favorite?
Oh man, you're asking me to pit my friends against each other here, man. They're gonna watch this when I send it to the group chat. So I don't know if I can pick, but I had for 2 years I had three roommates in the same house as Brian Ball, Jimmy Thompson, Brandon Wimbush. I can't pick a favorite out of those guys. I will say when Wimbush was in the game, it was fun because he would throw me the ball a lot because we were roommates. He would get in and he would look to throw it to me, but don't let the other guys think that means I'm picking him as a favorite.
Who were this might be a tough one.
That's okay.
Can you name all the quarterbacks that you had when you were at Notre Dame?
All the quarterbacks who started, or all the quarterbacks that were on the team?
That were on the team.
Oh man, I'll do my best. Okay, so my freshman year, Malik Zaire, Deshaun Kaiser, Montgomery Van Gorder, Brandon Wimbush, Nolan Henry, Rob Regan. I believe I nailed it. Sophomore year would be Deshaun Kaiser, Malik Zaire, Brandon Wimbush, Nolan Henry, J.D. Carney. Junior year, Wimbush, Ian Book, J.D. Carney again, Nolan Henry again. Gosh, I'm trying to think if there was a young guy who came in that year. Avery Davis. Phil Dracovic came in later. I've got to be missing some.
The weird thing is Drakovic's still playing.
I know he is. He's at Pittsburgh now. He's on his third school. He's at Boston College and then Pittsburgh. Gosh, I'm wondering if I'm missing anybody.
Sam Hartman?
Nope, he just got there this year, and so I didn't play with him. I didn't play with Pine, although I know Pine. I didn't play with Buckner, although I know Buckner. I didn't play with Jack Cohn. Cole Capon. Gosh, I can't believe I almost forgot Capon. Cole Capon was another walk-on. Gosh, I think that's it, and I'm going to feel terrible if I missed anybody. Oh, gosh. I hope I didn't.
Can you name not all, but like 5 or 6 of the wide receivers you played with at Notre Dame?
Yeah, I can name 5 or 6 wide receivers. There was Equinemius St. Brown, Miles Boykin, Chase Claypool, C.J. Sanders. Names that you might know: Will Fuller was there, Amir Carlisle, Chris Brown. Those were the guys there when I was younger. Torrey Hunter Jr., whose dad played in the MLB. Corey Robinson, whose dad is David Robinson, played in the NBA. Justin Brandt, Corey Holmes, Braden Lindsey, Lawrence Keys, Joe Wilkins, Micah Jones, Matt Salerno, Grant Hammond, Keenan Centliver, Omar Hunter.
Did you say Claypool?
I said Claypool. Yep, I said Claypool. Kevin Stefferson.
Was Kevin White a Notre Dame guy, or was he Stanford?
No, Kevin White was a West Virginia guy.
I don't know why I thought he was Notre Dame.
No.
He never panned out in the NFL, though.
Yeah, I think he was like a first-round pick, so he didn't do as well as people were expecting. But he was, up until I think last year, 2 years ago, he was still in the league.
Okay, next question. Can you name not all, but some of the coaches that were at Notre Dame when you were there?
Yeah, I can. So Brian Kelly was the head coach the entire time. My freshman year, the receivers coach was Mike Denbrock. Offensive coordinator was Mike Sanford. Special teams coordinator was Scott Booker. Same for sophomore year. And then after that, we had some coaching changes. So the new offensive coordinator was Chip Long. The new receivers coach was Del Alexander. New special teams was Brian Polian. Oh, and the original strength coach was Paul Longo. And the strength coach after that was Matt Bayless. And then that was basically the offensive crew that I worked with in special teams and strength. Up until the last game, Tommy Reese took over at offensive coordinator.
Where did Lindsey end up going?
Braden Lindsey?
No, the offensive coordinator. Chip.
Chip Long. Chip Long, he ended up he went to Tulane and was offensive coordinator, and then he was at Georgia Tech. Yeah.
Okay, this one might be another tough one, but do you think Notre Dame will ever join a conference?
That's a good question. That's a question that a lot of people ask. I don't pretend to have any insider info on this, from the athletic department, but I'll give my personal opinion. I hope that we don't. I think it's kind of cool that we aren't in one. I think it's something that is unique about Notre Dame, that's special about Notre Dame. We can design our own schedule. And a lot of people give us flack over not playing a hard schedule, but I mean, if you look at the schedules we play,
it is hard. You all play USC.
Exactly. Thank you.
Ohio State this year.
Thank you. Clemson.
See, Clemson's kind of, they're hard, but they're going through a little phase right now.
That's fine, and they are. But the other thing that people don't realize is we schedule games so far in advance. So, like, when we played Florida State, that game I mentioned in 2018, we scheduled that when they were, like, Jameis Winston winning the national championship game. So we think we're scheduling a really hard game, and, hey, sorry to say that they didn't turn out being very good that year. So I think even despite that, we have a pretty hard schedule year in and year out. We try to have a hard schedule. Sometimes the teams we put on it don't end up being what they were when we scheduled it. But I like the idea that we can build our own schedule. The one drawback would be going forward in the 12-team playoff system is that the conference champions would be the only teams that get a bye. So Notre Dame would never be able to get a bye in the playoff. But I think that playing the hard schedule they do and maybe having like a one-loss team they're going to get in every year, given that they have a good season. But I like that Notre Dame's not in the conference, and I hope they stay that way.
I'm the same way. I like them not being in the conference, but what I've read on Twitter and other social media is with conference realignment happening.
Right.
That's probably going to leave Notre Dame no choice but to either join the Big Ten or the ACC, which the ACC would make the most sense if the ACC doesn't disband, because that's the other thing I've heard is the ACC disbanding and those teams trying to find another conference to go to.
Right, I've heard that too. And that's looking, I think, it's not immediate, but that might be a bit down the road. If they did pick one, I think the Big Ten is a better conference.
Because we're getting – and here's my thing. I don't get why USC and UCLA are jumping to the Big Ten. That doesn't make – geographically, that makes It makes zero sense.
It's so weird. But I'll tell you, I am looking forward to watching USC have to play like a November game in Minnesota and freeze their butts off. But
I am too. But no,
yeah.
I think the only reason both those teams did that, USC and UCLA, is for money.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I mean
That's got to be the reason why.
of course
And
that's what
that's
this is.
the other and that's the other conference that they're talking about disbanding and dissolving is the
The
Pac-12 because
yeah.
they've had 3 different TV deals fall through. They had one with ESPN, but then that one fell through because of money. Then they had one with Fox, and that one fell through. Then they had one with Apple TV. That was the most recent one, and they couldn't come to an agreement on that. And then they went back to ESPN and asked for less money, and ESPN's basically turning them down.
Oh boy. Yeah, I mean that's what it's all about at the end of the day is money.
And I think the other reason you got USC and UCLA in the Big Ten is because they got a new TV deal.
Yeah,
with
of course.
CBS and NBC.
Yeah.
Which that stinks for Notre Dame.
I didn't know about NBC in the Big Ten, but
yeah, that's where the night games are going to be.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think it would probably not interfere with any Notre Dame games.
Unless they play at night.
Well, I would imagine they'll schedule it where they won't.
But I've heard that
if Notre Dame plays a night game, it'll be on NBC.
What I've heard is eventually it's going to hurt Notre Dame and it's going to force them to make a decision if they want to join, that they're going to end up having to join a conference.
I don't think they're going to end up having to.
Regardless.
I don't think they'll end up having to. I think it would be a money thing, if anything, because I think if they stay independent, people are going to still schedule Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame's a great game to have on the schedule. It's a big draw. You know, year in and year out, Notre Dame has a game that's towards the top of viewership for the season. So I think that's not a problem. Would be getting schedules. I think it would just be a money thing. If anything, I'm biased. I like Notre Dame the way it is. I hope it stays independent, but it's not up to me.
It's not up to me either. I like it too.
Yeah.
I think out of the four independents right now, I think the team that's most likely to join a conference, if they got invited, would either be UConn or Army. And Army would make a lot of sense because their biggest rival is Navy.
Right.
And Navy's in the American. And that's another thing is what's going to happen to all these group of 5 conferences when they do the conference realignment.
Right. I mean, it's looking like they'll probably get left out in one way or another. But with the playoff expansion, I mean, hopefully they'll have a chance for at-large bids if they have a team that's good enough. But they're going to have to try to schedule teams that are in those bigger conferences just to prove themselves and probably have to beat them to get in.
Like USF this year, they're playing Alabama, and that I think the only reason they're doing that is they know they're going to get beat.
Well, they're probably getting paid to do it.
Oh,
I would imagine
they're probably getting a boatload of money to do it.
Yeah, but the thing is, the other
thing. What were you going to say?
I was just saying, like, if USF, if they have a great season, if they go undefeated and they beat Bama, I think they'd be in the conversation for being in the playoff.
Well, see, the thing is, I think they might have one loss because look at their conference now. Everybody that was competing with them in their conference dipped and went to the Big 12.
Right, yeah.
All the teams that were good, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF. I mean, Memphis wanted to, but the Big 12 wouldn't take them.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking like the smaller guys are going to get left out a little bit, which is a shame for them. But in a way, it's already been like that. I mean, when's the last time? I mean, Cincinnati got in the playoff, but I think that was kind of a disservice to the little guys because they did so poorly.
Yeah, it was. But
But
and the other thing I think is I think that the group of five conferences are going to end up having to dissolve, and those teams are going to have to find one of the three mega conferences, whether it be the ACC, the Big Ten, or the Big 12, because I don't think the American's going to survive. The Mountain West is already, I think San Diego State's in the Mountain West, and they've already gotten the Big 12's already talking to them about joining the Big 12 because BYU's in the Big 12. And I guess that's one of San Diego State's rivals.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out in the next
And
like 5
then
to 10 years.
it will. And then I also heard that the Big 12's talking to Colorado State, Oregon, because they want all the four. They want all
Yeah,
the four corners.
that's a smart move for the Big 12 to stay relevant because they just lost Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC, so they're
Well,
gonna have to make some
what,
moves.
so with that, when are they going to the Big 12? Because the SEC, I mean, because I've
Is
heard
that is that
20.
not this is that not this year?
I've heard 2024, but then I've
Okay.
heard people say 2025 because they don't want to pay the exit, whatever it's called, the
Yeah.
exit fee to get out. Which
Got
I'm
it.
sorry, but that's going to hurt the Big 12.
Oh,
I
of course it is.
understand that you got Cincinnati, Houston, UCF.
Yeah, but
Those aren't big.
those aren't equal replacements for Texas and
No,
Oklahoma.
no.
Definitely
And
not.
I heard that the SEC is thinking about going to like the pod system once Oklahoma and Texas join, and A&M's already out here complaining because they don't want to be in the same. They don't want to be in the same pod of I think it's 4 or 5 teams as Texas, because I
Yeah.
guess they don't want to play Texas every year. Which to me it sounds like Texas is kind of scared of Texas A&M.
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
if you
if they're
remember
saying they don't,
back in the day, that used to be a big rivalry every year.
right? If they're saying they don't want to play every year, that does sound scared to me.
That's like y'all used to play. I know I'm not supposed to say this because I'm an Ohio State fan, but y'all used to play Michigan every year.
Right.
And then they chickened out, and now they don't want to play y'all anymore.
Right. We played them twice while I was there. We split. We beat them once, and then they beat us the next year. But yeah, I mean, it was more fun when Michigan was on the schedule. It's a good rivalry.
Michigan. Did y'all ever play Michigan State?
We played Michigan State twice as well, and we split 1-1 with them while I was there.
What was the atmosphere like in the big house when y'all played at Michigan?
You know, they beat us pretty bad that game, so it was a huge bummer for us. But it was pouring down rain, and the crowd was like kind of a non-factor in my opinion. Um, I know that they have a huge stadium. The thing about it is like it's so the stands kind of are like on a not a very steep slope, so like there's no the verticality of like if you look at like a Tennessee stadium or like Alabama or LSU, like the stands go like straight up and it just makes the sound like reverberate off the walls in there. Like
Ohio
feels extra
State.
loud. Ohio State as well, yeah. So Michigan's like the sound didn't really capture as well, even though there are like so many people there. And I would say it was a night game and raining. It was kind of hard to even see up into the crowd, like see who was in there. So I would have loved to play like a game against Michigan at the big house where it was like a nice day and like you could kind of see everything. But I also would have liked to win the game. That was a bummer.
What I've heard about Michigan, because I'm friends with a couple people that are Michigan fans, they say their fans do get really rowdy.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah, my oldest sister went to Michigan, Alex, who I'm sure you remember. I got to go to a couple Michigan games when she was in school there when I was younger. And we had a lot of fun. That was in the Denard Robinson days, if you remember him.
Oh God. I remember Shoelace vividly.
Yep, he was a good player.
Shoelace, he torched Ohio State.
I remember.
Um, did did you ever play at Michigan State?
We did 1 year in
How was the atmosphere?
2017.
How was the atmosphere there? Was it better than the big house?
No, no, I don't. I wouldn't say that it was. It was good. It was cool. I kind of like a middle of the road atmosphere as far as stadiums I played in.
How was it playing at Stanford?
Quiet, like I mentioned. Usually, even we played there 1 year and they beat us, and it was like still like. I mean, their stadium's just kind of small. Their campus is beautiful. The stadium looks really cool, but it's just small and like they don't have a very raucous or engaged fan base. Um, Kind of typical of most California teams.
Well, what I've
Um,
noticed is like Stanford football, they don't really get a following. But when it comes to baseball and basketball, it seems like they get more like their fans show out more for baseball and basketball.
oh, okay. I didn't know that, but yeah, I just know
That well, at least with baseball, that's what
yeah.
I've seen because they made the tournament the last couple of years in baseball.
Well, it helps when the team is doing well. So I'm sure when Stanford is doing well, it's been more exciting over there. But
But
just the
they did
times,
have to just get rid of. No, I think he stepped down. David Shaw.
yeah, yeah. Did he step down?
He he either stepped down or like just straight up left. I
Oh,
know
okay.
there was what like Air Force had one of the military schools had recruiting violations. And for a military school, you wouldn't really think that's a big thing because they don't really focus on sports that much.
Yeah, that's surprising to me.
It was, I'm pretty sure it was Air Force. They had like some recruiting violations, and
Dang,
then
that's well.
the,
They
and
they
then
they haven't been that good though, have they? Like
no,
you're cheating to stay the same.
and then Tennessee just had to,
Oh, Tennessee's been running a filthy operation for years.
well, I just saw the other day they had to vacate a bunch of wins.
I know they had like 200 recruiting infractions.
That reminds me of Penn State when I'm not going to say the person's name, but when that coach was there and all the
Yeah,
whole scandal.
yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't think what's going on at Tennessee is
No, it's not as
quite the
bad as
same as
that.
that. Yeah,
Or as an Ohio State fan, what happened with the whole Zachary Smith thing, and Urban Meyer not telling
yeah,
anybody.
yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a lot that goes on at a lot of schools, and something's coming out every year. So it's
Ole Miss with the basketball coach.
yeah,
That when I heard that, I'm just like, there's no way that can be true. And then I read the whole article. It that's being dumb.
I got to say I'm not read up on that, so I don't know exactly what that is, but I mean, there's a lot that
It's
goes on, I
basically he
suppose.
took a bunch of recruits into like this house that had a lot of illegal things going on. That's
Got it. Yeah,
all I'm
got it.
gonna say on
Yeah,
that.
that's all you need to
But
say. All right, I got you.
um, otherwise, other than that, I mean, have you been watching Notre Dame football lately?
Yeah, well, I mean, they haven't had not since last season, obviously not since the bowl game, but I keep up with them on social media, and since I left school, I've watched every game that I could, and I am I'm an avid couch fan now. I sit on my couch, and I hope they do they do well. So I still love watching Notre Dame. I've been back to a couple games, which has been a lot of fun.
Did you see any of your old teammates when you went?
Yeah. I went last year to Stanford, which we lost, which is unfortunate, but I saw some old teammates there. And I went the year before to the North Carolina game, saw a bunch of my teammates there. I think the game a bunch of guys are going to this year is Ohio State, which unfortunately I can't make it to, so I'm bummed about that. But I'm hoping I can get to the USC game.
Do you still keep in touch with Claypool?
Yeah, periodically. We're not talking every day, but we've exchanged some texts over the last month and shared some old Snapchat memories that pop up. I don't know if you're on Snapchat when it hits you with like the 3 years ago
Yeah.
today. And yeah, so there's been some funny ones that have popped up, and we've been sending them back and forth.
He seems like he's doing good in is it Chicago?
Yeah, he's with Chicago now, and
With
yeah,
Justin Fields.
yeah, I hope he's doing great. I mean, Chase is a good player. Justin's a good player. I think they should be able to connect on some big plays this year. So I hope things go well for them.
Do you have any questions for me?
For you,
I don't.
let's
As you know, you're the
yeah,
first person that I've interviewed.
yeah. I'll throw a couple questions at you. Let's hear your. This is way too early to predict, but your playoff for this year. What teams do you think are in?
Um, Obviously, I'm gonna have a Big Ten champ's gonna be Ohio State, and that's the least biased I can be,
Mm-hmm.
because that's gonna kind of be obvious. It's either gonna be Michigan or Ohio State. Whichever
Got it.
one doesn't win the conference is gonna still get in as an at-large. Big 12 is kind of. I can't really. Big 12's kind of hit or miss. Like I could say Texas, because I think Quinn Ewers is gonna have a big season, because I feel like there's pressure on him, because he knows if he doesn't do good, he could get benched and Arch could be the starting quarterback. Because I think Arch is already enrolled at Texas.
That's right.
So Texas, SEC. I might surprise you with this. It's not going to be Alabama. I can tell you that.
Okay.
It's either going to be Tennessee or South Carolina.
What about Georgia?
They've lost too much the last 2 years, and they have
Okay.
an inexperienced QB.
Okay.
I wouldn't put it past Kirby to be in the playoff again, but with an inexperienced quarterback, I've seen how that works at Ohio State before.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't usually go very well. So SEC, it could be Georgia, it could be Tennessee, it could be South Carolina. Pac-12. I'm gonna be honest. I don't stay up that late. I try to stay up for those games. If I get to it,
Those are good games to fall asleep to.
Yeah. But if I had to pick, I'm gonna have to say USC, because Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley. That's an unstoppable. That's
Yeah, they're
that's
pretty
like
good.
Let me use a superhero reference. That's like Thanos. That's like Thanos and Hulk.
Okay.
Thanos is Lincoln Riley, and Hulk is Caleb Williams.
Got it.
And the other thing with USC is they know how to recruit. After Caleb Williams leaves, they're still good at quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard to get somebody to sign up to go be the
Quarterback at you.
the stud player in Los Angeles.
No, it's not. And it's going to be even easier because, like we said earlier, they're joining the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So that's for
ACC.
ACC. I'm going to have to say Florida State. I want to say Clemson, but they're in the same boat as Georgia. Klubnik's their quarterback, and we saw bits and pieces of him in the last year, but we don't know how good he's actually going to be as a full-time starting quarterback, because DJ.
What happened there? Did you lose me?
Yeah, I lost you for a second, but you're
Oh,
back.
sorry about that.
You're good. Because DJ Uyunglele was the quarterback last year for Clemson until he got benched, and then they brought in Klubnik.
Right.
So I think Clemson still does make the playoffs, just not as a champ of the ACC. And then group of 5, because there's 3 more spots left, I think, for the playoff, because it's 12. So there's 3 more left. So group of 5, I'm going to say USF, if they win their conference, which I think their conference is winnable, because I think the only team that's really going to compete with them is Memphis and SMU.
Mm-hmm.
The other teams in there are new.
Yeah.
Mountain West, again, I don't stay up that late. But just if I had to guess, I'm going to say Boise State. And that's non-biased again. I'm not a Boise State fan, but I do like their blue turf.
The blue turf is unique. It's special for them. It's a little ugly to look at, but I get it. I get it.
I don't know what's uglier though, the blue turf for Boise State, or I don't know if you've seen Eastern Washington. They have
the red turf.
Oh my!
Yeah, and I think Eastern Michigan has gray turf. I don't know if you've seen that.
Why?
Yeah, they're just trying to be unique.
They're trying to be like Boise State.
I know. It's cool because Boise was the first to do it, so it's cool for them.
But so Mountain West, Sunbelt, I'm gonna have to say it's either gonna be Coastal Carolina or App State as that large, which that should be to no one's surprise, because one of those teams always wins that conference.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that. App State and Coastal, they don't get. I think they should be getting more airtime than they do, because it's like, oh, they show their highlights, but then they flip over to like Alabama. It's like
Alec,
they
You're talking about playoffs. I haven't heard anything about the Irish.
I'm getting to it.
Okay.
The last team that gets in, I know. Last team that gets in is Notre Dame.
All right. There we go. Let's go.
I'm sorry, Michigan fans, but y'all are getting left out. And that's not to do with my dislike.
Sure.
Because I'm an Ohio State fan.
Of course not.
It's not. Okay, let me hear yours.
I think what you said is all makes sense. I don't know. South Carolina would surprise me. I think that it's hard to go against Georgia after winning 2 in a row. Bama is going to be good. See, I got people to root for now, though, because I got friends who coach at Bama, at LSU, at Vanderbilt, at Notre Dame.
I think Bama is still going to be good, but the issue is inexperience with quarterback. Like Milroe, we saw Milroe for spurts last year, but he didn't start the whole year. It was Bryce Young.
Yeah. But we'll see.
So you think I was spot on with my playoff?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said. I don't think that many group of 5 teams will get in, to be honest. I think it'll be the conference champs, and then I think they'll pick off like the other top teams in the big conferences. So like I think it could be, like you go Bama, LSU, and Ohio State, Michigan, and Florida State, Clemson, and Texas, Baylor. You know what I mean? I think they might go that. I think they might go that route instead of pulling like an App State or like a Boise State in. I think that it's more likely to take more of the big conference teams. So, but yeah, I mean, everything you said made sense. I'm not going to pretend to know everything about every conference. So I think I would imagine you pay a little closer attention to all this than I do. I'm really just like a Notre Dame guy. So I think I'll yield to your expertise here.
I try to pay attention.
No, yeah. I mean, you clearly know a lot.
I do. I mean, I did a previous episode on the Big Ten
Yeah.
And I don't have Michigan finishing in the top two.
Okay.
I have Maryland finishing in front of them.
Maryland. Oh, I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know.
It's not because of their
I
quarterback.
I think your bias might be showing a little bit, but that's okay because I like to show mine as well, as you could see from my
No,
hat.
that's I see that, but no, it's not bias. It's just I feel like Maryland's building something.
Okay. I mean, hey, I'd love to see it. I think that'd be pretty cool.
I have my top four for Big Ten East is Ohio State, Maryland, Michigan, Penn State.
Can't argue with you.
And the only reason I don't have Penn State and said top three is because, again, they just lost a very good quarterback. And they're replacing him with the guy that's, I think Allard played maybe 2 games last year. So we don't know what he's
Right. There's a lot of guys who will be fun to watch and
like.
gotta watch
Ohio,
the film.
for example, Ohio State, McCord. You don't know what.
Yeah, you don't know what you're gonna get.
It's either going to be him or Devin Brown.
Okay.
I would have said Devin Brown at the beginning of spring, but he didn't play in the spring game because he had surgery on. I guess he had an issue with like his hand or wrist, and he had surgery.
Okay.
I think McCord's gonna end up winning the starting job, and Marvin Harrison might win the Heisman.
I don't think that's unreasonable to say. He's a good player.
Because, and what people are not understanding is who was Kyle McCord's number one wide receiver in high school, his senior year?
I don't know.
Marvin Harrison.
Really?
They went to the same high school.
Oh, that's fun for them.
Yeah. And they're going to put a. I don't think it's there's an outside chance that both of them could be in the running for the Heisman. But then
that would be really fun for them. Yeah, that'd be fun.
It would, but then that would leave out like Caleb Williams. Everybody's talking about Drake May from North Carolina.
Hey, he's a good player.
He is. I don't watch enough ACC to get behind the narrative that he's gonna see. Caleb Williams, all I got to see was highlights, and he's special.
Yeah, I'll say this. Every year, the media picks like a couple new quarterbacks to say are like the guys, and I think it's just because that's good for business. But like, it's just not the case every year. There's not 5 amazing quarterbacks every year. Like, and they do it in the draft too. You know, like they got every year in the draft, they'll say there's 5 franchise quarterbacks that they gas up the whole way leading up to the draft. And there's really not. I mean, like, one will pan out maybe. Sometimes you get lucky and a bunch of them will, but like every year you see teams picking guys like really high because they want the next quarterback and they'll take a chance on them. But it's not that common.
Good example this year, Bryce Young. Everybody's like, oh, he's going to be number 1 pick. He's going to be number 1 pick. And then CJ Stroud comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then everybody's like, oh, maybe it's CJ Stroud. Then at one point, Will Levis.
Right. Yeah. Well, and then Anthony Richardson. Like, there's all these guys that they're like, yeah, this is the next guy, and they're all taking a chance on one of them being the next guy, but they can't. Maybe they could all be fantastic, but it bothers me that the media does that every year. They make you believe that there's 5 or 6 amazing quarterbacks.
Exactly, and I think it's happening now because ESPN's laid off a bunch of.
That's right. Yeah.
And one of the guys they laid off was Tom McShay, who does.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Damn, they fired.
I'm sorry. In my opinion, I think it was time to get some new blood in there for the draft because you've had Kuiper and McShay in there doing their draft analysis for years.
Yeah. It's unfortunate they fired a bunch of people. I feel bad for them, but they fired some big names too.
They did. And, like, I'm sorry. I don't want to say anybody gets fired, but, like, there's a couple I can't stand. And, like, I don't like Dan Orlowski. I don't know what it is. I just don't. Like, some of his stuff he says, like, on Get Up, it's just, it blows my mind. What would he know about, like, being a starting quarterback? He was never a starting quarterback.
Was he not?
No, he was always a backup. And how I know that, he played for the Buccaneers at one point, and it was a backup to Mike Glennon.
I mean,
And
he still was in the league.
he was, but, like, he says Tua's a better quarterback than Justin Herbert. And then at one point,
that's those guys are just paid to talk, so they fill airtime, and you got to take everything they say with a grain of salt, I think.
at one point, he said that Baker Mayfield should get the same amount of money that Lamar Jackson just got.
Oh wow!
And I'm like,
well, maybe Baker will have a fantastic year for you guys, and he'll get big money.
I see what I think we're doing, and I don't want this to happen, but I think it's going to happen is we're going to tank so we can get our franchise QB. I've been a lifelong Buccaneers fan. It pains me to say I think we're tanking in order to get Caleb Williams, Drake May.
No, nobody really tanks. I mean, because you got to think the coaches, they want to keep their job, the players want to keep their job.
I agree, but at the same time, Bowles, that was a bad hire for the Buccaneers as their coach after Arians left. I think it should have been Leftwich.
Oh right, Leftwich seems like a pretty good coach.
He was our offensive coordinator. He's the reason we won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And then he was gonna get the head coaching job with Jacksonville before they hired Peterson. I don't understand the head coach, how that process works for the NFL, hiring coaches. Like, and the Texans flunked that whole process. They could have still had Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
If they just let him be a part of finding the head coach. Because I think they would have hired Bieniemy.
I like Bieniemy a lot. I think he's a great coach.
My question for you is, why does he always get passed over? Like the last two.
I couldn't tell you, man.
Last 2 years, he's gotten passed over for head coaching jobs for other guys.
The one thing I can think, and probably is the reason he took the OC job in Washington, I think maybe guys think that the success in Kansas City is more attributable to Reed than to Andy Reid than Bieniemy. So I think Bieniemy's going to go to Washington and try to prove that he can do it without Andy Reid. So I hope he does. I think he's a great coach, and I think he would be a good head coach as well.
I have another question for you. What was it like being in training camp with the Chiefs and getting wisdom and knowledge from Andy Reid?
Yeah, it was great. Being there, I could tell why that team is successful. I mean, they have a great culture, a great locker room. The coaches are great. I wasn't a star, and I was still getting coaching points from Andy Reid, and Kelsey was helping me out on stuff. Mahomes was, Tyreek Hill, and like just seeing how good those guys are, what they do, it trickles down to guys like me. Some of the creativity in the offense and the play speed and just the mindset. It's really it's easy to see why they are so good.
Any other questions for me?
I'll give you one more, and you can't answer the horseshoe. If you could go to a game in any stadium this year, which one would it be?
Oh, okay. Okay, so not Ohio State.
Yeah, we're gonna
Oh,
rule out Ohio State because that's your obvious answer.
hmm. Pardon me. I didn't expect you to ask that. Um. Oh. Okay, I'll give you three.
Okay,
I would say West Virginia, so I
nice.
could hear the tradition they do. Country
Yeah,
roads.
nice pick.
Um. I'd have to say Penn State, obviously, because not for a game, just the whiteout experience.
Nice pick.
Because I've heard that's something everybody wants to go see is the
Yep.
whiteout. And then third one. I know there's gonna be people that say, "Oh, why are you picking this?" But Iowa, the
Dude,
kidding
I was gonna say Iowa too. The wave to the hospital.
that
Nice.
just when I see that on TV, it
Oh,
just
dude, that's a
oh,
really, really cool tradition.
it get it gives me not chills, but it warms my
Yeah.
heart because there's kids lay if there's the kids lay in the hospital and they don't know if they're gonna live, they don't know if they're gonna
Yeah, they
die.
right. Nobody wants to be in a hospital and they're getting the whole stadium waving to them. It's pretty cool.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna flip it around. What's your top three for stadiums you would want to go to this year?
Okay. I won't say
Notre
Iowa.
Dame. Notre Dame is excluded, just like you
Got it.
excluded Ohio State for me.
Got it. So Notre Dame's out. I won't say Iowa because you already said it. I'll go with Ole Miss. I think it'd be fun to go see a game at Ole Miss. I hear the tailgate is next level. Um, I would love to see a game in the Rose Bowl, preferably the Rose Bowl game. You know, not like a UCLA regular season, but I think a game at the Rose Bowl would be awesome. Um, and then let's see. Oh, you know what? This isn't Notre Dame Stadium, but it is a Notre Dame game that I'm not going to. It's in Ireland. Notre Dame's playing in Ireland against Navy. I think that would be pretty sick to go to.
Okay. The last thing I'm going to ask you for is your. I'm going to pull up the schedule right now because I made
Yep.
a Google slide on it.
Let's
I
see it.
want.
There we
Can you?
go.
Okay.
I can see it.
Go
Okay. You
week
want me?
by week and win, loss, and if you don't mind explaining why.
Okay. Week 1, Navy win. Notre Dame's going to come out hot. Week 1 in Ireland. Navy runs a triple option. Everyone hates the triple option. Everyone's going to be mad that we're playing against the triple option. A little extra motivation. We love to beat Navy. God bless them. Thank them for their service. Notre Dame wins. Week 2, Tennessee State. Big win for Notre Dame. It better be. We're paying them to come to school. Big win. Next, NC State at NC State. Big win. Notre Dame, way better than NC State. I hate NC State. Terrible weather last time we played there. Week 4, Central Michigan. Brian Kelly used to coach there. This is a MAC school. They have no business beating Notre Dame. They shouldn't beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame wins. Week 5 versus Ohio State. Huge win. Don't even care. Next question. Week 6 at Duke. Notre Dame. Win. Huge. Week 7. Win by a lot. Bye week. We win the bye week. We'll win the bye week too. I said we will. We're going to have a great bye week. Week 9, USC. Huge win. Revenge from last year. We're mad. Caleb Williams. We're mad. Week 10, Pittsburgh. First Phil Dracovic. He's going to be mad. We're madder. Big win. Notre Dame bye week. Oh, we got a second bye week. We're going to win that bye week too. Look at that. Bye week before USC and a bye week before Clemson. That's huge. Week 11 at Clemson. We're going to keep putting them on them. We beat them last year. We beat them a couple years ago at home. Win. 12 Wake Forest. Win. 13. Win. That's 12-0. Go Irish. Thoughts?
I agree with most of it, but the one, like I said previously, I think y'all lose one or two games. One of them's you might lose to USC depending on who they play the week before they play y'all.
Here's the thing I'll say to you, and not a lot of people realize this. Most good teams that Notre Dame plays, not even most good teams, most teams that Notre Dame plays, they put their bye week right before our game. It's very common. Get a little extra week to prepare.
And then the other thing I don't understand is y'all's Notre Dame schedule this year. Y'all have 2 bye weeks.
Yeah, that's new. I didn't know that. I never had that when I was in school. Would have loved to. It's nice to get a
Because
little break.
I was putting this together because I'm like, okay, so we're gonna talk about Notre Dame, and I was putting this in the slide.
Here's why. I just figured out why. Because week 1 versus Navy is technically week 0. You ever hear them talk about week 0?
Oh,
It's like it's the weekend before everyone else plays, so they'll have an extra week to take a bye week. Nice.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I was making the schedule, I'm like, it didn't make sense to me. I'm like, okay, so they're playing week 1, but it's not actually week 1. It's week 0.
Yes, they're starting a week before most teams start.
I mean, there is some games week 0, but not a lot.
There's usually like 3 or 4.
And
all right,
see,
that was my very biased prediction at 12-0
for Notre Dame. I
told you.
I was the same way when I'm going to be doing my Ohio State. Prediction tomorrow for their record, but
I think Notre Dame will win every game by 70 to 80 points.
Any other questions for me before? Any other questions for me before I let you?
I don't think I have any questions. I just want to say thank you so much for including me on your show. I am honored to be a guest, and I believe you said the first guest. So
yes,
thank you so much for including me.
You're welcome.
It's a great honor and a pleasure talking to you, Alec.
Same goes to you, Chris.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Talk to you soon.
Yes, sir.
Close out, exit out of the thing.
Okay. That'll disconnect me from you?
Yeah, it should.
All right. Well, I'll say see you before I do. And thanks again, dude.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
There we go. Okay, now to part 2 of this show in episode 24 of Talking Sports. Here are my... Hold up. Here are my Big 12 standings for this year. At number 14, I have West Virginia. At number 13, I have BYU. Number 12, I have Houston. Number 11, Iowa State. Number 10, Texas Tech. Number 9, Oklahoma State. Number 8, TCU. Number 7, UCF. Number 6, Oklahoma. Number 5, Baylor. Number 4, Kansas. Number 3, Cincinnati. Number 2, Texas. Number 1, Kansas State. This next slide, I'm going to give you my top 5 Ryan Day replacements if Ohio State was to let him go. Number 5 is Tom Herman, and the reason I think Tom Herman would take the Ohio State job is because he was previously an offensive coordinator at Ohio State, and that's what I have to say. Number 4 is Mike Houston. I think he's at an AAC school. If Ohio State called and offered him a contract to become their next head coach. I think he'd take it. Number 3 is Matt Campbell. It needs no explaining, but I will. He was getting a lot of attention for being a head coach the previous 3 off seasons before this past one that's about to end next month. And I think he'd be a good fit for Ohio State if they got rid of Ryan Day. Number 2 is Shane Beamer. I don't think this one's logical because I don't think he's ever going to leave South Carolina. And then number 1 is the most, I don't really think it needs an explanation, but again, I will. It is Brian Hartline, the current offensive coordinator going into this year for Ohio State. I think he would make the most sense. I think they're grooming him to be the next head coach. Because if they weren't, somebody else would have already snagged him up to be their head coach or be an offensive coordinator. And that's why I think Hartline could be the next head coach at Ohio State. My next slide is a redo of my earlier show, and it is my top 5 preseason Heisman list. Number 5, I've got Joe Milton of Tennessee and KJ Jefferson of Arkansas. And I think Joe Milton's going to have a big season for Tennessee. As y'all saw when I did my SEC football talk with my friend Robbie, I think Tennessee is going to win the SEC East and maybe make the playoff. And I also think Arkansas is going to have a decently good season. And if KJ Jefferson stays healthy, he will be in the race for the Heisman. Number 4 is J.J. McCarthy of Michigan. I have J.J. McCarthy here because I feel like Michigan's going to be good this year. They might win the Big Ten. If they don't, it's probably going to be Ohio State. And that's what I have to say about McCarthy. Number 3 is Drake May of North Carolina. I have Drake May at number 3 because I don't watch a lot of ACC football, but the bits and pieces of ACC football I watch, Drake May looks like the next number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. But I don't think he will be. Because I think there's another guy on this list that could be the number 1 pick in the draft. Number 2 for my preseason Heisman list is an Ohio State guy. But it's not the one you're thinking of. It's not the quarterback. It's not Kyle McCord. It is his teammate, wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr. And the reason I think Marvin Harrison's going to have a big season, and I think it's going to lead to him being in the Heisman talk this year and maybe winning the Heisman. If he doesn't win it, it'll be the next guy I talk about, and that is Caleb Williams from USC. And Caleb Williams is the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. And I think Caleb Williams could win the Heisman again. And let's get to... Here's my top 5 college football traditions. Number 5, I've got Wisconsin's jump around. I've never seen it in person, but I've seen highlights of it, and I've seen the whole backstory of how it actually got its start at Wisconsin. And it's a cool It's a cool little documentary. If you have time, I recommend watching it. Number 4, I've got the Florida's Florida Gators. Tom Petty won't back down. That they play before the fourth quarter of every home game. Number 3, I've got Texas A&M's Aggie Warham. This is another one. Most of these I've never seen in person, other than number 2, the second one of number 2. But back to Texas A&M. So I've never seen it in person, but I've seen the highlights and the what it sounds like. It looks amazing. At number 2, I have a tie between 2 traditions I really like. And that is West Virginia Country Roads, which is, I want to say, is West Virginia's alma mater, but it's their tradition. They do it every home game, after the game, with the fans and the players singing Country Roads. And then the second one on number 2, I've seen this one in person many times as an Ohio State fan. It is the famous Dotting the I from the best dang band in the land. And at number 1, I have 3 at number 1, as you can see. 1A has got to be the Kinnick Wave from Iowa. That's just, it warms my heart when I see it on TV. I'd love to see it in person. 1B has got to be Virginia Tech Enter Sandman. And the reason I say that's another one I've never seen in person. But I've heard it's, as you heard from the person I just interviewed, he witnessed it in person as a member of Notre Dame. And he said it was crazy. And 1C has got to be the Wideout at Penn State. And my honorable mentions go to Mr. Brightside at Michigan and the Eyes of Texas with the University of Texas. And this will end the stream. On the screen are my social media accounts, my Instagram. Feel free to message me on my Instagram with questions for future streams, and I will answer them. And my Snapchat is also on screen as well. And feel free to message me on Snapchat as well, as I will also answer questions there. Please like, comment, and if you haven't already subscribed, thank you. That'll do it for this stream. Have a wonderful rest of your evening.